Yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right, well, I will just go ahead and start then, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So my name is Courtney Poullas, and I spend most of my time in the higher education sector. I do teach writing and composition courses at YSU, Eastern Gateway, and ETI Technical College of Niles. So I am in SCORE, and I got my experience as a business owner because I run my own freelance writing and editing business, and I also founded and served as CEO of the Youngstown Marathon Foundation, which puts on the Youngstown Marathon every year. So I did that for a couple years, and then I really wanted to go back to teaching. So, but that was where most of my experience is in business. I did another presentation for SCORE probably about like 4 to 6 weeks ago. I know it's posted on their YouTube channel where I talk a lot more about being a woman in the nonprofit industry. So it's nice to meet all of you. And today we're going to go over women's success and entrepreneurship. So I have an agenda laid out here. I'm going to quiz you guys first. So the first thing we're going to go over is just a little quiz. It is not graded, but in the spirit of me being an educator, we're going to go over some facts and some data. We're going to see how much you know about female entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses. We'll look at the statistics and data about female entrepreneurs, and we'll talk a little bit about why women value starting their own businesses. A lot of women value leaving corporate America or leaving their careers, their workforce careers, to start a business. So we'll talk about that. And we'll go over the challenges that women face in entrepreneurship, how to overcome those challenges and achieve success as a female entrepreneur. And then I don't know about you guys, but I'm always happy when someone says, hey, go buy these books. So I have some professional development suggestions for anyone who would like them. And these are geared specifically towards women who are starting businesses. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first question is, according to the 2019 annual report titled The State of Women-Owned Businesses, the number of women-owned businesses increased how much in that year? 13%, 21%, 19%, or 7%? Does anyone have a guess?
19%?
19%? Anybody else? The number of women-owned businesses increased 21%, which surpassed the national average of business growth, which increased just 8%. So women-owned businesses are on the rise, and women are starting businesses and owning businesses faster in their little sector than the national average and how much that grows. All right, so the second question is, as of 2019, this is from the same report, Latina and Hispanic women own what percentage of national businesses? 18, 15, 7, or 22? I've got the chat open too. All right. Maya says 22. Lauren says 15. Latina and Hispanic women make up 18% of women-owned businesses. In 2019, the rate of Hispanic and Latino women-owned businesses jumped 10%, as opposed to jumping just 7% between the years 2014 to 2019. So this is great news. More female minorities are starting businesses, which is awesome because we don't want to have any kind of gap between men and women or between white women, women of color, Latina, Hispanic women. We want these opportunities for all women and for all men. So this kind of statistic here is really great news. All right, and this is the last one. 1.6 million women own businesses in which of these fields? Retail, health and wellness, professional and technical services, and education, or education. Health and wellness. Go ahead, Maya.
Retail.
All right. As of 2016, there are at least 1.6 million women-owned professional and technical services businesses. And this sector includes law, architecture, public relations, and consulting. So some of these might be a little bit surprising. Okay, so I want to hone in on one of the sectors, which is the private technology sector and the women that work in this industry or in this sector of entrepreneurship. So there was a report in 2018 by the Kauffman Foundation, And I found some really great statistics about women-owned businesses here that I wanted to share with you guys. Women achieve a 35% higher return on investment than men, which is a very interesting statistic. From 2007 to 2018, women-owned businesses grew by over 50%, which is awesome. From 2007 to 2018, women-owned businesses saw a 46% increase in revenue, and women own approximately 13.1 million businesses in the United States, and almost 9 million Americans are employed by a female-owned business. Okay, so just in one of these sectors alone, we can see that women in business, it's very up and coming. So let's talk a little bit now about why women start businesses. So there is a report brought together by the Center for Creative Leadership. And what we have here are some statistics from their survey of a few thousand women regarding why they want to start a business. Okay, so more job satisfaction, more organizational dedication, more meaningful work, and less burnout. And as I thought about this statistic, or not necessarily this statistic, this data, I found it very interesting because I think this really highlights typically how men and women differ and why men may do something versus why women may do something. I think for men, not to overgeneralize, but it's typical of men to want to serve as the person who provides the finances to the house and is caring for the family. And it's interesting to hear that the reason women start businesses, not that we do it because we don't want to make money, but that's not really the driving factor for us. And I can attest to this in my personal life. The meaningful work, following a calling, those things are very important to me. So I found this very interesting that in a survey of thousands of women, this is what they have come up with. And just a quick personal anecdote, starting my own business was the reason that I walked away from my corporate job. I made a lot of money as a senior manager in corporate America. I worked for Pearson Education, and I just quit one day because I was going to be starting the Youngstown Marathon Foundation. So for me, I was willing to go from X amount of money to basically nothing, just starting out, because it really meant something to me. And it was very meaningful to me to be able to start this race in this area. So just a little bit of insight. Maybe you have a personal story that you can relate to as well, but I found that very interesting. Now, the less burnout part of this, that was a little bit questionable. I think that might be a little bit naive because those of us who have started businesses know that burnout is a real thing. And we'll talk about work-life balance and things like that a little bit later on. But anyway, these are the top reasons found in this study by the Center for Creative Leadership about why women want to start a business or proceed with starting a business in the first place. All right, so all this sounds wonderful. Women are starting more businesses. The rate of women-owned businesses surpass the national average. So, all this sounds great. But there are several challenges that women face when they are starting their own business. So one of the main challenges that we face as women is finding funding. And there is a Babson College report that was produced in 2014 to kind of back this up. Only 3% of companies with venture capital funding had female CEOs. And this is just sort of a summary. We'll talk a little bit more about each of these. Being a female leader comes with its own challenges, especially if you're running a large team, especially if you're on an executive board with a lot of male counterparts. So supervising male subordinates, leadership among male counterparts, those two things can be challenging on the road to success. Time management and work-life balance. Whether or not you have kids, it's a little tougher if you have children, but time management is difficult for anyone, both men and women. Work-life balance, I think, and statistically is a little bit more challenging for women. So that's something that we will go over. And then, of course, there's always the issue of labeling, so being called names or being labeled with a certain name or something else. And then the issue of sexual harassment. So we're going to talk about each of these, and then I'll give you some insight just from personal experience in dealing with some of this stuff as to how you can overcome these challenges when you're starting a business. All right, so let's take a look at some data about the funding for female entrepreneurs. So if we go back here, we can see that only 3% of companies with venture capital funding had female CEOs. So in another report in 2019 produced by the State of the Female Entrepreneur, I found these interesting statistics here. 22% of women-owned businesses reported that they did not apply for funding because they were afraid of being turned down. So even as women gain more equality, especially in fields and in business and in places that are still maybe largely dominated by men, this kind of stuff is still an issue. And at one point, women couldn't get loans. That's they passed something to get rid of that, but it's still very challenging in some regards. So 22% of women-owned businesses, they didn't apply for funding. They were too afraid that they would get turned down. 73% of female entrepreneurs believe that funding is too hard to obtain. 61% of female entrepreneurs choose self-funding rather than reaching out to investors or applying for loans. And the average loan amount for female entrepreneurs is 31% less compared to loans granted to men. So that last statistic there, that can really give you some insight as to why the other three bullet points exist. So this personally was not an issue for me. I think I was in a little bit of a different situation when I was running the Youngstown Marathon, because it was a big deal in here in Youngstown. We didn't have a marathon yet, and if you're not into the running industry, a marathon really puts your name on the map. It draws a lot of attention. It draws a lot of people, both nationally and internationally, to your city. A lot of press, a lot of money donated to charity. So, I didn't face this issue personally, but based on what we have here, it's still very clear that it definitely exists. So we'll talk a little bit now about those leadership challenges that women may face when they are in business. Being a leader can be tough. So I don't know about you guys, but I know that as a woman myself, I always value like a sisterhood or a support network or my girlfriends or people that I can sit down with after work or after something goes wrong and we can talk and we can laugh. And you have that interconnectedness with your female friends. And we have male friends too, but it's just those relationships are kind of different. So if you are in an industry or you've got an executive board that is made up largely of men, that can be kind of challenging. Starting a business, I think, when that's you're all in and that's all you're doing, can be isolating and challenging to begin with. But I think when you don't have a whole lot of other women or any other women who are in this with you, having that support network and building that sisterhood that we value as women can be pretty tricky and pretty challenging. And you may feel like you're alone in this leadership journey if that's the case. Becoming comfortable with delegating tasks and providing supervision to male subordinates. So I've got this statistic here that I thought was interesting. And this was published in Forbes. According to Forbes, this was 2019, women make up just 24% of senior leaders. So if you're on an executive board or you've got typical corporate positions, CEO, senior managers, and you're in that upper level management, it can be kind of challenging if you've got a lot of people working on your business with you that you consider reporting to you, or you consider yourself to be the manager, to be the boss. It can be really, really tricky to delegate tasks to both men and women, and stand up and be a leader as a woman. And then finally, making decisions with and for male counterparts. So another interesting statistic from the Peterson Institute for National Economics, 60% of executive boards do not include any women. So you can imagine then when there are women on these executive boards serving as CEO, which is what I did, and my board was made up entirely at first of men. It was me and 5 other men on this board, and it went really well, but I have to admit that I was a little bit intimidated at first. Not only because I was a woman here, working with these 5 other guys that I barely knew at first, but they had more experience in this kind of thing than me. So I think those two things combined, being a woman and then not maybe understanding what I was getting myself into when I first started the race, that was a little bit intimidating. It all worked out, but I can definitely understand how and why making decisions with and then giving instructions to male counterparts can be pretty challenging. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about the almighty work-life balance. So what is work-life balance? So this means that you're balancing your work as a business owner with your personal life. And I think all of us could probably use a little bit of a lesson and some practice in doing this. I find that with women, we rarely make time for ourselves to begin with, especially when we have children. We've got the business, we've got the kids, we've got the household. It's really rare, I know for me, to go do something for myself for an hour or to sit down or to go get my nails done or to just go do something I like or read a book because when you assume responsibility for the household, and a lot of us do, it's never ending. There's always something that can be done. The floor needs swept. The tables could be wiped off. Well, I haven't cleaned the baseboards for 3 months, so let me go do that. So there's always like these reasons not to sit down and do something for yourself. And that on top of running a business, especially if you're just starting and you're just spinning constantly and getting 5 hours of sleep per night trying to get this thing off the ground, that can be very challenging. But if you don't balance your work with your personal life, that's a recipe to crash and burn. So it's really important that you are able to do that. All right, so just a quick note on labels, sexual harassment, and inappropriate comments. Both men and women can experience this kind of thing in the workplace. Statistically, women experience this a lot more. So the unique challenges that we face are labels, especially. We are too aggressive, she's too bossy, she just wants to tell everyone what to do, she thinks she's in charge. These are all things that we can hear just simply because we are trying to delegate and we're trying to be clear and concise about our expectations to avoid any confusion. And this one here, right? So name calling, labeling, these are things that I think women face probably a little bit more than men. Sexual harassment and inappropriate comments, anything like whistling, anything like catcalling, and then these comments that we see from other people, well, you should smile more, or why don't you smile a little bit, or put a smile on your face. I mean, those are all things that we don't want to hear, and those are pretty unique, I think, to being a female who is running an up and coming business. All right, so we'll talk a little bit now about overcoming challenges and becoming successful as a female entrepreneur. So we'll talk about funding. If we went back to that other slide, we could see that when it comes to funding, women struggle with that. A lot of them are afraid to apply for funding to begin with. Many women will fund their businesses themselves to get it off the ground, but there is funding out there, and there is a lot of funding that is specially created just for women. So these are just a few. There's a whole bunch of them. I've even got a local one on there, but I'll tell you a bit about these. So 37 Angels, the goal of this company, of this funding sector, is to close the gender gap. So their aim is to provide women-owned businesses with startup funding. So that's one to take a look at. The Female Founders Fund provides funding to women-owned startups. So this is especially made for you if you are just starting a business. Youngstown's Community Foundation of the Mahoning Valley currently has over $75,000 in grant money through the Fund for Women and Girls. I just checked this out the other day. So get yourself a grant writer, or maybe you're good at grant writing yourself, and don't be afraid to apply for funding. I know it can be a little bit intimidating, but the funding is definitely out there. And I want to add too with this slide that I wanted to point out some of the funding opportunities that were specifically for women, but that isn't to discourage anyone from applying for funding that's available to anyone who's starting a business. I know the Small Business Association has a ton of loans that are not, gender specific. So this isn't meant to discourage you from applying to other funding opportunities, but these are specifically for women who are in business, who are starting a business, who are looking to further a business as women. So these are a few to keep in mind. All right, so a little bit of insight about becoming a strong leader here. So please do not be intimidated about growing your business by leading and directing other people. And I've got some leadership tips. This is always something that I felt I was fairly good at. So something that I learned to do is over communicate. And it might seem like you are sounding like a broken record, but as a teacher, maybe this is just something I learned as a teacher, you have to say things a few different ways. You have to write things down or put things in a typed document in a few different places to make sure that people understand and that they're reading all of it and that they're listening. So this is really about making any requests that you have or any expectations that you have very clear from the start. Any confusion that you can eliminate that could potentially cause any kind of conflict is an excellent business practice, regardless of whether or not you are a woman. But this, when we go back to like labeling or things like she's too bossy or she's not nice or I don't like her, this can help you avoid that. So you're not necessarily catering to other people, but you're just making it very clear from the start, Here's what I expect. Here's what I need. Here's what the business needs to grow. This is what I need you to do for this reason. Make it very clear over and over again. So over communicating, even though it might sound like you're being a little bit relentless, some people might call that nagging. It's best to make sure everyone understands everything, and over communicating will help you do that. Be authentic. So it's okay, I think, to tweak your leadership style based on the people that you're working with. So if you've got a team of 10 people on a project and you notice that they like more of an informal kind of meeting style, maybe a little bit more casual versus a different team that likes to be a little bit more professional and really get down to business, there's nothing wrong with, I guess, catering a little bit to both. But you still want to be yourself. You don't want to get into changing your leadership style because someone makes a comment about you or someone says they don't like you or that you're too bossy. Um, because A, you can't please all the people all the time, but B, it doesn't really matter if they like you. It matters that you're a good leader, you're directing them appropriately, and they understand what they need to do to get the job done. So be yourself, cater your leadership style in a way that still allows you to be yourself when necessary. And then own the assertiveness. People say assertive like it's a bad thing. She thinks she's in charge. Well, I am in charge, right? If you're the one running the business, you are in charge. So, don't be afraid to say something like what I just said. Like, yes, I'm in charge. I'm the boss, and I'm enjoying working with you. But this is what needs to be done. So, being assertive is not a bad thing. Some people might tell you to tone it down, or whatever it is. And again, there's nothing wrong with tweaking your leadership style and working on your own personal and professional development so that you can be the best leader that you can be. But holding your employees or holding other people that are working with you on your business, other contractors accountable, that should be common practice. So if someone says you're assertive or you're too assertive, you should own that. You shouldn't think that that is a bad thing. Okay, maintaining work-life balance. Let me see how many slides I have left here. So maintaining work-life balance. So again, back to communication, whether it's your husband or your partner, whoever it is, like I said, these are kind of personal suggestions that I've learned from running a business myself. But as the mom of the house here, it's very easy to just assume responsibility for pretty much like everything, the kids, the house, the pets, whatever. I think I hit a slide here. Okay. I think I hid one of my slides by accident. Did I do that? I must have deleted it. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, there it is. I just skipped one. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is a slide where I wanted to go. So maintaining work-life balance, finding time for yourself. I think as women, we need to stop thinking that 5 minutes extra in a shower is considered like a spa treatment or some kind of self-care. This is not self-care, especially if you are working to get a business off the ground. Maybe you're still employed and working part-time while you do this so that you're able to have some extra money to get it off the ground, and you're with kids or a partner and you've got a house, and other responsibilities. And even if you're past the age, I'm going to be 35. If you're younger, you've got college, you've got school, you're just getting your career off the ground. And if you're older, maybe if you're closer to retirement age, maybe you have aging parents that you've got to take care of. So this work-life balance here applies to everyone, not just women, not just women with young kids, college students, both men and women, people with children, people with aging parents, and just people who work too much. Maybe you're single in your 30s and you're having a great time, but it's still easy to overwork yourself. So this is really for everybody. But I know as a woman with young children, I don't know when to stop. So one of the things I've been learning to do and that I've been really saying out loud to myself is I can maybe have it all, but I cannot do it all myself. So it's really important to let go of the I can do it all myself attitude. Maybe you can, but ask yourself if you really want to do that. Do you really want to stay up all night just so you can wash dishes instead of having someone else do them for you? Do you really want to be the person scrubbing the baseboards when you'd rather be doing something else? So I'm not saying just, shove all your responsibilities off, but if you find yourself getting overwhelmed and feeling like you're drowning in your work and drowning in the business and drowning in your household responsibilities, it's time to think about that and start assessing the work-life balance that you have. So I harp on this all the time that I don't think the American dream should be overworking yourself to death between your business, your family, and your household. I just don't find that to be the American dream, especially for women. So don't be afraid to pay for help. This is one of the best tips I'm going to give you. So I'm giving you permission. Do not be afraid to pay for help. It's the best money that I spend. I have someone come and clean my house every week because I'm just strapped between the business stuff. Like I said, I'm editing someone's young adult novel right now, and it needs a lot of work. So I'm doing that, and I'm teaching, and my kids are starting their summer activities, and my husband is now going back to work after working from home. So it's a lot. So don't be afraid to pay for help, or don't be afraid to ask for help. If you are a mom, or if you are someone with aging parents and you're, quote, working from home, you are working. I feel like as women, we forget that. Well, I'm working from home, but I'm also playing mom, and I'm also washing dishes in between meetings and phone calls. No, you're working from home. So um, try to only work from home then. You deserve someone that can help you. You deserve childcare. Just because we're women working from home doesn't mean that we don't need to put our kids in childcare or need some kind of help with things around the house. So really try to let go of the I can do it on myself type of attitude and type of thinking. Schedule time for yourself. I've really been working on time management. I have a Clever Fox planner, highly recommended, and I schedule everything into blocks. So I use the time scheduler and I put everything that I need to do into blocks. And I thought, well, if I can schedule everything else, then I should be able to schedule some time for myself. So in your planner or in your iPhone calendar or Google Calendar or whatever you use, leave an hour blank, or a couple hours. Leave a couple hours just with nothing to do. So I think part of getting better with time management and getting better with scheduling tasks is making sure you don't overschedule yourself. Okay, so back to this slide about communication. So communicate your needs while you're going through this, especially if you're just getting started in your business, to your husband, to your partner, whoever it is that's helping you out. As the mom in the house, we're assuming responsibility of everything. So in addition to paying for outside help, you can tell whoever it is that you're living with exactly what you need. Okay. I have a joke here, men can fold laundry too. I'm just kidding, but kind of kidding. You know, your husband, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever, they can help you with this kind of stuff. So this is a little bit about change. Even before you started this business, if you were the person who did A, B, and C, and now you don't have time for A, B, and C, you need to share those responsibilities with somebody else. So again, it's this kind of getting rid of this is my job, this is my responsibility type of attitude. It's always good to ask for help. And as much as you can, this is an unpopular opinion, but as much as you can, try to avoid multitasking. I feel like multitasking gets too much glorification. If you do one thing at a time, it might take you less time. It probably will take you fewer minutes or fewer hours to do something if you're only doing that thing. I know it's easier said than done, but try to avoid working in bed. I don't check my email in bed anymore. Someone can wait 30 minutes until I get up out of bed. I don't answer the phone at the dinner table. I don't bring my business with me to my kids' activities or my kids' sports or on short vacations. I think something that women are generally afraid of or maybe don't want to do is disappoint other people. So we bring the phone and the laptop with us, and we bring everything with us wherever we go because we don't want to disappoint someone. We don't want to miss a phone call. We don't want to miss someone calling us and asking us about how our project is coming that we're doing for them, whether it's a client or whoever else. So this is a tough one. It was a tough one for me, but avoiding multitasking and really trying to be present in the moment, both in work and out of work, has really helped my stress level, and has helped me focus a lot more on what I'm doing. So definitely try to avoid multitasking. It's not all it's cracked up to be. So what maybe takes you 60 minutes will take you 30 minutes instead because you're able to really focus. I think, if we're constantly like looking at our phones or checking email in between working on a project for a client or whatever we do in our business, that can get kind of tricky. We'll forget things. We'll leave someone hanging by accident. We'll forget to answer a message. So try as much as you can to focus. And then finally, just a little bit of insight on handling labels and handling sexual harassment. Um, Speak up about this kind of thing. Labeling and sexual harassment usually happen in the background and no one hears about it. But statistically, Even though a lot of women stay silent about this kind of stuff, statistically, a lot of women experience this kind of thing in some kind of workplace. So, as the business owner, you have the responsibility to speak up not only for yourself, but if you're going to employ women on your board or in your business, or you want to have female interns sometime, you want this to be a safe place for them to work. So, there's a lot of reasons to not really stay quiet about this stuff. And then something that has helped me in the past is in a situation like this, I would have someone on the board or have someone that I work with who is a man kind of approach the situation with me. So that kind of helped as well. So it's never okay. Always a good idea to speak up. And if it helps to have someone kind of with you when you're approaching the situation, that will help too. All right, so here's the suggested reading slide that I promised. So I've got 4 books on here, and they're all on Amazon Prime as well as Amazon Kindle. The first is Girl Code, Unlocking the Secrets to Success, Sanity, and Happiness for the Female Entrepreneur. Girl Boss is one of my favorites. It was one of the first professional development books that I've read. It's really good. She Rises for Tomorrow, Female Entrepreneurs Who Brought Ideas to Life and Inspire the World. And then this is another one of my favorites. It's called You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. That's by Jen Sincero. She's an amazing author. So, okay, now we have time for questions or comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
I agree with what you said about multitasking. I'm learning how to do that as well, but it's very it can be very hard because like with me for my job, for example, I like helping people and I like, doing the best I can, but I know that I have to separate work from home. And I'm learning to do that now because when I come home, I don't care about work. I leave work at work. Now I do have an older mother. She is 67. Now about the part where you did mention one thing that I agree with, and I know it's gonna take my mom a while to learn how to stop thinking that she doesn't need help, because when I would tell her that, mom, let somebody else help you. No, I don't want anybody to help me. It's just we work well together, and she's so
Mm-hmm.
used to me being around because I have a younger brother, but he moved out a long time ago. He lives on his own, so it's just
Yeah.
me and her. So like when I tell her like not to do so much, um, it's hard telling my mom that. So what tips can I do to, well, I don't know what to tell her because she doesn't listen to me. She's so used to doing for herself, and I'm the same way too.
Yeah.
I'm not used to asking for help.
Right, right. The only thing that I've really found works in that situation is to have someone who's not in the family. Like if she's got a good friend or something that you can talk to that you feel like she would trust and listen to, you might kind of slip some information to that person. Or a healthcare professional. A healthcare professional might say, listen, you need to take it a little bit easier. You need to maybe think about doing this or that. So I don't know if you go to the doctor with her, if you take her to the doctor ever, but
Mm-mm.
you can kind of like lead into those kinds of conversations. So I find that I'm an only child. My mom is going to be 66. So
Oh, my 67.
yeah. So, and my mom's very active and is also kind of the same way. She still
Yeah.
works. She's a bartender. She's still a bartender. So I get where you're coming from. But I find that sometimes having someone else besides us have the conversation with them can do a lot.
Well, sometimes I also learn like, well, for me, I don't have any children. So the only responsibility I have is a dog. So that's a child right there. And and I do have a boyfriend. I've been with him for 5 years. And sometimes it can be difficult for me to go to him for help.
Yeah.
And it's the same with him as well, because a lot of times we don't go to each other for help. We just like to solve everything on our own. And
Right.
I like multitasking because like I learned that on my own. And my mom, she multitasks well too. So to me it's kind of hard to like stop doing that. So but I have learned to not worry so much about work. Like I leave work at work, and when I'm home, I try to rest as much as I can.
Good.
But I, but it's hard because with the pandemic, it's like you really can't go anywhere. You can't really do anything.
I know. And that, I mean, when I was making all these slides, I kind of thought about that. Like, as far as work-life balance goes, I don't know if that even existed during really the height of the pandemic, because we were doing every single thing at
Hmm.
home. And unless we were physically at work, we were doing everything at home. So that, yes, that was very challenging.
Yeah, I physically have to go to work, but
Hmm.
other than that, I go to work and I come home. And normally on the weekends, I would usually go out with me and my boyfriend. We would go out to eat, go to the movies, go out to get ice cream and stuff on the weekends. Mostly we would go out every week, but now due to the pandemic, I haven't seen him in a year and a
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
So we all we have is Zoom and text messages and emails. That's the only way we really keep our communication going. But other than that, like this pandemic has been really hard. And I think that's one of the key things that where a lot of people are starting to get stressed out because you really can't go anywhere. You can't do anything.
It's tough. Yeah. Especially in the with the work-life balance arena. It's very difficult at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. With
And I
everything.
try to keep up with school as well too, because I'm taking online classes as well with Eastern Gateway. So like I like I said, I like all my teachers and they're very helpful towards me. And I also like since being in Eastern Gateway, I've joined the support service what I forgot her name, Miss Trisha
Hmm.
Goss. She's a behavioral department counselor or something for people with disabilities because I have a disability myself and I reach out and get other resources and help. I joined their support group. The next group I go to is April the 26th. It's always on a Tuesday. So, I talked to her and it's about 16 of us, but but again, it's better to have physical interaction
Yeah.
because being in the house, like I am a homebody, but sometimes I'm not because I like to go out. I want to go out and see my boyfriend and my friends.
Right. Yes. It's been very difficult. But it sounds like you're making some progress, being able to come home and be home and not constantly be thinking about work. So,
Oh yeah, I
God
go
bless.
out. I take my well, I don't walk my dog. He walks himself. Let's just say that. I take yoga classes. I try to de-stress when I'm at home. I try not to think about a lot of stuff. But like I said, I like my job and I like what I do because I like helping people. And my coworkers, they appreciate all my work that I do for them because I get gifts, I get Christmas cards, birthday cards. I get too many gifts. Let's say like
That's all
I
right.
get
Yeah.
well, yeah, they appreciate it. I gotta like I said, I don't know how many. I got too many gifts for my job. I got too many.
Well, I appreciate you sharing what's been working for you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any comments or they want to add anything? May, it looks like, okay, so May loves the books. I'm glad to hear that. Um, Thank you for sharing. Anybody else?
Hey, Courtney, it's Ron.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
So first of all, I want to give you kudos if you figured out how your husband's going to do the laundry.
I knew you were going to say that.
So congratulations. But
Thank you.
anyway, I do want to say a couple words. First of all, it's great discussion and great presentation, um, as always.
Thank
But
you.
I do want to tell everybody that Courtney and Lauren, who are on the call here, are working with me on developing a program this summer that talks about women in entrepreneurship, and it's going to be a number of panel discussions with successful women, and it's going to be facilitated by women. So you're not going to see any old guy on there like me, but I'm working in the background to to set this up. So keep an eye on your calendar because it'll be an Eastern Gateway sponsored event and a Westminster Entrepreneurial Center sponsored event, as well as hosted by SCORE in Youngstown. So just keep an eye open. We'll probably do it in June, July, and August. And we're working hard trying to get some ideas together and people lined up. And just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. There'll be actually a follow-up session. So You know, that'll be 10, it'll be 10 sessions. So it'll be really digging in depth with successful women who have actually done it before. So that's all I want to say, Courtney. Thank you.
Yeah. So does anybody else have anything that they would like to add here?
Hi, Courtney. This is Caitlin. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi.
Great. Hi. So just kind of going over this, I work, overtime almost always. I live alone. I'm going to school at EGCC, and I'm also doing a certification course for cybersecurity as well. So, and I have a 3-month kid. So everything you said about, yeah. So work-life balance is definitely, is something I always have to get used to. And I think it's seeing that presentation kind of saying, listen, it's okay if you have that, the 30 minutes to yourself.
It's always okay.
Yourself, just having that block. Because I think I need to kind of get a planner and kind of really go for it. Because I can work, because we're kind of taught, I mean, not everybody, but most of us as females are really taught to just kind of, say yes and then kind of not speak up about how we feel if we're coming toward a burnout, stuff like that. And I think it's important to say, listen, what is my threshold and what's gonna, in the long term, not affect me to the point of either burnout, mental health exhaustion, which can translate to physical exhaustion, physical, illnesses and stuff like that. And I think it's important to kind of have that, even though it can be difficult, but still committing at the end of the day, committing to yourself, and I'm definitely looking forward to those sessions as well in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point too. You talking about how like we push ourselves to the point of burnout, or maybe we say yes to everyone, which I've done plenty of times. Sure, I can do this. Yeah, I can do that, and this and that. We do get ourselves into trouble, and I think that, and this isn't a criticism about anything you said. I just think in general, there's this belief system that if you can work yourself just before the point of like a mental breakdown or burnout, then you're still doing okay. And I think that thought process in general has got to go. This whole idea of like, well, if you're not mentally suffering, then you've got to be fine, because there's a lot of gray area in there. So, I think that's a really good point, that there's a lot to unpack with all of this. Yeah.
No, and definitely accurate as well. Because I know if they'll say is if you're not working almost to the point of, I guess, exhaustion, or right before that brink of that mental exhaustion, especially, they're saying, there might be that little thing in your head where you're taught, like, could be, I don't know if it's somewhere down the road when you were younger, but, thinking, am I not doing enough because I don't feel either physically or mentally that I'm exhausted? And I think we shouldn't get to that point. I think we should just kind of have, everything what we do in life is about a positive outlook. If we have a positive outlook with ourselves, with our work, with our lives, we'll see more of an effort. But how can we take that time out if we're not taking care of ourselves at the end of the day? I think as females too, we're caring for our families, we're caring for our children, we're caring for our animals, our work, especially during the pandemic when everyone was scared about, whether they'll have a job or not, stuff like that. And I think it's important to kind of take a step back and say, listen, you can't control what the outside forces are, but you can control within yourself, how you feel, how you see, and what you can do either at that moment or what you can work toward. So I think this is definitely kind of a good wake-up call.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Everything, I agree with everything you said. All right. Does anyone else have anything to add? Anyone else want to say anything?
No, Courtney, just one other thing. Pat called me on the phone and told me there's a power outage at Window World.
I just got his text. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. All right. So, I didn't know if we'd have any disruptions or not, but apparently not. So that's all.
He made me a co-host. So that's probably why. So I went ahead and put my email address in the chat. I know a couple of you messaged me privately that maybe you want to talk more about funding or some other things. So Courtney Poullas at gmail.com. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'd be glad to set up a call about something specific, or just if you want that permission to hire a housekeeper, call me and I will give it to you and it will be fine. So All right, so anybody else?
No, thank you, Courtney.
All right, I enjoyed talking with all of you. I hope all of you have a great night. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'll end the meeting. So have a good night.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Thank you as
Thank
well.
you.